Hi, folks. I did it again. I got my two pals, my Thursday pals here. And before I bring them on, I just want to show you this. This is Freddy's harness racing alumni show. He's looking for sponsors because he's going to do it in a big way, and hope it gets to be like worldwide. So if you can contribute or be a sponsor for him, help him out, because he does everything on his own dime. And just go to www.ustrots.com and sponsor the show. Okay, that's that. Now tonight, this is what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about Freddy's show that happened, that he aired on today. It aired. He does it on Tuesday, but he aired it today. So we're going to be playing parts of that and talking about that. And so without further ado, here we go. There's Freddy, and there's Michael. And hi, you guys.
Greetings, everyone.
Hey, Larry and Michael and audience.
All right. Everything is a go because I remembered to hit play, and I remembered to put the sound on. So we're in good shape. So, Freddie, I told whoever's watching that we're going to play parts of your show, or we're going to play the whole thing, and then we'll talk about it. And whenever you want to stop to talk about whatever they were talking, your guests were talking about, this is a pretty powerful show, especially if you're in harness racing. And I'm sure Michael might have a couple of questions along the way. So that's what we'll do. The only thing I have to do now is find it.
Larry, can I say?
Yes, say whatever you want, Michael.
Before we start, I know there's people out there that think things are kind of hopeless. Well, I just want somebody to know, as a White Sox fan, last year they had the record for the most losses in the history of baseball. And this year looks like they might be headed that way also. And I just want you to know that the White Sox are playing at like a percentage of like 230 or somewhere in that range. Meanwhile, when they threw the 1919 World Series, they won 3 of the 8 games. So they actually played at a higher percentage when they were throwing the World Series than they have the last 2 years. And if that wasn't enough, they elected a pope today from the United States. Actually, he's got some history in Chicago and said he was a White Sox fan. The day they elected the American pope, the Sox lost 10-0. So if you think you've got it bad, you don't.
Very good, Michael. And just I want to say something too, because I know I'm going to get asked 15 times on the questions and everything else, because I put my whole life out there. Today, I got all the results back from my CAT scans and all the blood tests, the sophisticated tests that tell if there's any more trace of cancer in your bloodstream or anything like that. And I took 10 days. The last blood test showed that I still had cancer in my blood. I took 10 days. I got 30 days worth of some cocktail that this very good doctor gave to me, ivermectin and 2 other parasite killing drugs and 1 heavy duty antibiotic. Anyway, I instead of taking it for 30 days, I took it for 10 days. And I stopped. They took the blood tests, and all the tests come back today, and every test came back negative. There's no trace of cancer throughout my whole blood system, any place. They also did a full CAT scan where you had to drink that stuff before, and then they put intravenous and everything on you, and that test came back. So today I got the results of that test, and that came back. Everything was clear. So between the blood tests and everything else, they said yesterday when I went there, they said that I have a clean bill of health, that everything is positive. And I'll tell you, I refuse to take the chemotherapy. And and they wanted me to do it for 6 months, and instead I took just 10 days of ivermectin and 2 other parasite killing drugs, and all the tests come back that whatever was there is gone now. So I guess and I have to say this, I believe after in the last 2 years I've been diagnosed with a few life-killing situations, and I've overcome all of them. So I truly believe now that God put me on this earth to find out how much punishment and abuse a human body could take. So maybe he could make the next generation strong without going through what I went through. Now, naturally, that was a joke, but I'm in good shape. For all you guys that are asking all the time, I'm in good shape. I got lucky, and I have to believe it was the ivermectin and me refusing to take the chemo. So I got good news. So that's it. We don't have to talk about that no more. And Freddie, you want to say something before we go into the show that you had?
Well, this week's show, we had the breeders from Kentucky. It was a very positive show. We had Michelle from Crawford Farms, Steve from Hunterton Farms, and Sean from Diamond Creek Farms. And we had a very interesting conversation about the success that Kentucky is having with the with standardbred racing, and some ideas as to what we could do to possibly spread it to other states. And I'm also going to add something else. You had put up there, anyone who joins the Harness Race and Alumni show, I will also send them a superfector trial book for anyone who joins up this week. So,
you mean as a sponsor?
As a sponsor member, either way, I'll make sure that they get a book. So.
Yeah, but wouldn't it be nice if everyone that signed up just sponsored a little bit? There has to be a way. I don't know how to market anything, but there got to be a way to help you. I don't know when you're going to run out of money, but nice if
we've had some help. The Meadowlands sponsored a couple shows recently. Gordon Freeman has put some money up to sponsor. Joe Rico came in and did some sponsor, and so we've had some money come in, but not a lot. But it's covered the Washington D.C. expenses. So
yeah, all right. Before we go on, let me just say this: that I must have got 5 calls, and the first couple of comments on here was that my friend Eddie, our friend Eddie Delora, who's the thoroughbred guy that I have on Tuesdays, he's my friend. He won another race today, and the horse paid $40-something. And he called me this morning, and he says, somebody here wants to talk to you. Then I want to get back to you. And he put Ian McKinley on the phone because he had a horse that popped a quarter crack, and Ian McKinley was down there. And we're going to do a show. I think Ian McKinley's going to come on. And I'll talk about that another time. But he called me, and so I says, Ian, I'm in the doctor's office. I can't talk too much now. And he said okay. And then Eddie gets back on the phone, and I think he was going to tell me about his horse today. But I says, Eddie, I can't talk to you. I'm in the doctor, and I hung up. Anyway, the horse won and paid $42. And if Eddie's listening, and I think he is, you got a lot of fans here, Eddie. Anyway, good.
Larry, was he calling you before he won or after he won?
No, before. This was in the morning. It was about 9:30. Ian McKinley was there to patch the quarter crack, and he rebuilt the foot, and I think he put a pair of and also glued the shoes on. So I don't know what horse that is, but I'm sure he'll win his next start too. Eddie's doing really well. He's a really good guy. He pays attention. He knows what he's doing. And
yeah, that was a really good show Tuesday.
He comes from the Standardbreds, Eddie.
Mm-hmm.
Been the Standardbreds a long time. Okay, well that's enough. That's enough. We'll go to the comments later on. All right. So should we start your show, Eddie? If I could find
Freddy.
it. Freddy. What did I say, Eddie? I'm getting really bad. I'm really getting bad.
Yeah, Tom, you are. Larry.
Do you know that yesterday it took me almost an hour and a half to find my car? And when I parked it, I says, I'm going to remember the level 3. And after I got done with my visits and everything else, they have 5 levels. I had to walk every level and keep hitting the button. I couldn't find I can't remember level 3 for about an hour and a half. Okay. All right. We'll go to your thing here, and whenever you want to butt in or stop, we can do that.
Okay,
sure.
And if I'm right, this is it.
Michael, the same thing with you too.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, because I'm going to be listening.
I'm Freddy Hudson, and I'm here today with Trade Martin and Bob Marks. Joining us this week on our special show discussing the successful standardbred breeding and racing program in the state of Kentucky, we have from Huntington Farms, Steve Stewart, from Crawford Farms, Michelle Crawford, and from Diamond Creek Farms, Sean Lagani. Steve, Michelle, and Sean, welcome to the Harness Racing Alumni Show.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi.
Okay. Now, guys, I want this to be like an open conversation, so jump in anytime that you want, but also, just say who you are when you talk. Steve, I'm going to start with you. Why has Kentucky emerged as the best place to be breeding and racing standardbreds?
Well, we used to not be able to say that, but I think we're heading in that direction for sure, if we're not already there. It pretty much started, I don't know how many, it's always more years than you remember, but it was when they passed the law in Kentucky for instant racing machines. And they had got it from, I think, Oaklawn or whatever, and they were able to copycat them. And then there was a really big court battle for a while. The something foundation or whatever, basically a church group had said that it was illegal, that it was not, that the racing could not use slot machines / instant racing machines or whatever. And then they do look like slot machines or whatever. But anyways, and then they finally settled it about 2 years ago or whatever. And then since then, it's really exploded. The Red Mile did not do hardly any advertising waiting for it to get settled. But since then or whatever, it's generating an incredible amount of money. And for the program, and we've done a very, very good job of I think distributing the money. There is no Breeders' Award, so all the money goes to purses, and so consequently, I think our program is between $20 and $25 million. But the main thing we try to do is to make sure that, and I think that's what really helps, is at the Red Mile there's several. Get her back up. There's several tiers or whatever. We have 3 tiers plus the Wildcat, which is non-winners of like 2 races or whatever. So there's lots of different levels that you can race for at the Red Mile, and then we've got the other 2 tracks. So they've built 2 tracks that are in the south of the state, and they are. Generating a lot of money pretty much because of Tennessee has no casinos or no gambling there. So they strategically put them along the state. One is north of Knoxville, and the other one is north of Nashville, and they generate an incredible amount of money. I mean, just to give you an idea, I haven't looked this year, but last year I looked on June 10th, the Oak Grove had bet $1.6 billion. That's with a B. $1.6 billion in handle for the machines at the track north of Nashville, which equates at that time it was 5 months and 10 days, which equaled I think $10 million a day, which is really incredible. So that's pretty much the reason.
Okay. Michelle, what encouraged you to move part of your breeding operation to Kentucky, and how do you find Kentucky different from New York?
Good question. I think we were a little bit ahead of it. We were starting to see the trend, and the money that was coming into Kentucky. And, we thought at that time it would be good just to have, some resident mares. And we're not in the stallion business, like Diamond Creek, but obviously with the stallion, you get the bonus program. And then if you have your mares sitting there for 180 days, you can go back and forth. But, we are a very large breeder, as you know, in New York. So we started to look at the program and starting to see the dribbles of, what the dually eligible yearlings were selling for. And we thought, hey, maybe we'll just get a plot of land and we'll just put some horses there and do residency, and we can make up, some of this income, for the farm in how we sell the yearlings. But the money it kept getting better and better. And I mean, to be honest, it kind of ballooned. We ended up buying a farm, and it's become more of a full geared operation, start to finish. And to have resident mares and mares that are shipping back and forth, I mean, you have a 5-day window, you've got to be very precise. So sometimes the math doesn't work out. But it's I've seen in the P&L alone, when you can show up in Lexington and say, hey, I have dually eligible, there's a premium for that. And buyers will buy something that they can race in New York and Kentucky for whatever reason. It doesn't get around in New York, or we've, finagled the schedule a little bit so that they can actually race in all of the different programs. There are some conflicts and there's some work to be had with that. But you now you have 4-year-old programs in Kentucky. The bonus programs by themselves are worth it all day long. And you have Oak Grove, and then you go right to the Red Mile, and you have all of the different series. And then you have Cumberland, late closers, and, the late races for the stakes and at the end of the year. So I don't see how you don't consider it. I think you're at a loss if you're a farm and you don't have either dually eligible or a farm in Kentucky.
Okay. Sean, can you tell us a little bit more about the stallion incentives and the dual eligibility?
Sure, Freddie. So it takes a minute to explain sometimes. We're trying to work on how to shorten it so you can really understand it really easily. But essentially, if you breed to a stallion that's based in Kentucky, and the mare is also a resident of Kentucky for 6 months in the year that she's bred, well, then that resulting foal will receive 50% purse bonus on any money earned in Kentucky Sire Stakes, any of the breed development races, all divisions, all levels, including the fairs at all 3 tracks in Kentucky. So last year, Luna Lovegood was kind of the big winner of Kentucky. I think she made the most for this eligible bonus program because she's by the Stallion Chimpanzee that we stand in Kentucky. And so those owners received over $60,000 in money. I don't even know if they were expecting at the end of the year, which was 50% purse bonus on the money she had earned in those races.
Okay, now this question is pretty much for everyone. What is Kentucky doing to prepare for the onslaught of people, meaning trainers and other breeders and owners, all moving to Kentucky? Steve, we'll start with you.
Well, the one major thing was that the Red Mile is not open for winter training. And so there was a great lack of stalls and places for trainers to train. And they were able to, some entrepreneurial guys from Versailles, educated people call it Versailles, but us Kentucky people call it Versailles, which is about 15 miles from Lexington, and probably about 2 miles from Crawford Farms, right down past the airport or whatever. They're building a training center. And I think
Wait, they didn't put that in for me, Steve?
What's that?
They didn't put that in just for me?
Well, it's just getting the truth out. Anyway, But anyway, I need to fold this mare, but I'm going to come right back to you guys. You all talk.
It's certainly close.
Okay, Mike. Let's jump in here.
And it's on Paynes Mill Road.
Larry?
It's probably only.
I think there were some big points there. I'm going to say something that Kentucky does that some other states don't do, which is why I think they're destined to really do well. And that Kentucky, they only race one track at a time. So even though they have all these multiple tracks, there's a circuit. Oak Grove's going to start in March. They'll go till mid-July. They'll lead right into the Red Mile. And the Red Mile, of course, has that great Grand Circuit meeting right after Futurity Day. That goes right into Cumberland. Now, a lot of other tracks states have more tracks, but they end up running in the same day. And I think a lot of that is counterproductive. So I think you can build handle once this circuit gets established in a way that a lot of states, because of the I'll just use the word haphazard, many tracks going against each other on the same day. I think Kentucky's got a chance to pull this off properly.
Yeah, I do want to point out that, Steve Stewart, during this broadcast, he was actually delivering a foal while he was talking. And so he had to come in and out. And while he was taking care of this mare and this foal, the foal's delivery. And so he basically, you can hear the way that he was talking a little bit. It was a little bit off of, and he was not his normal self. But and the other thing I'm going to point out when he was talking about the slot racing and stuff, that's the historic horse racing slots. And he said, like the last figure that I saw, and Michael, correct me, they brought in $9 billion, correct?
Well, I think Steve, I wrote it down actually when he said it. He said that for the period of 160 days last year, from January 1st to June 10th, they bet $1.6 billion at Oak Grove. So when you break that down, they wagered about $10 million a day at that facility. So obviously, you're talking about an enormous amount of money, and it's when you consider that Kentucky was probably struggling a little bit, and now this could be the mother lode for them. So everybody's hoping that this is something that develops into something great, and I think it will. And obviously, we hope that the success is not just in Kentucky, but spreads to other states as well.
Yes. All right, Larry, you can continue.
All right.
And it's on Paynes Mill Road. It's probably only 3 minutes down the road from Crawford Farms, and it's probably only 25 minutes with traffic from the Red Mile. I know they'd hoped to have it done this spring. We had a terrible winter, but I know they're moving a ton of dirt, putting up barns as fast as they can, trying to have it ready as soon as they can. I believe they have a fair date approved to have fair racing there in August. And then as far as I know, as many stalls as they can build, there are trainers that are ready to move horses in. So the demand is there. So
Larry, I'm going to jump in here. What he's talking about is the new training center that they're building in Kentucky. I think that we jumped the gun and people may have not heard that. So they have this really ultra modern training center that they're building. That's what he's talking about. The barns are going up and so forth like that as fast as they can.
How many stalls they're going to build at that training center?
I think it was 600.
That ain't enough.
Don't hold me on that. To start with, Michael, did you hear? Is that about the right number, or am I off?
No, but the consensus there is what Larry said. As the migration starts towards Kentucky, they're going to continue to need stalls, but there's high demand right now.
They're going to need at least 1,500 stalls minimum.
Well, this is just for the training center. This is just for the training center, not the racetracks.
Well, how many stalls do racetracks have?
I have no clue.
Michael,
you're at Oak Grove. How many stalls do they have at Oak Grove?
I'm not sure, but just going back to what Larry says, that every barometer is pointing towards Kentucky. So what Larry says is
100%.
absolutely correct, that you're going to see people make that decision to go to Kentucky because the financial dynamics of that make it so.
If that's going to be the place, and it certainly sounds like it's going to be the place within the next 2 or 3 years, the one or two things is going to happen. People are going to get out of the standardbred business or move to Kentucky or around that area. So they're going to need a lot of stalls. And the racetrack probably, I don't believe the racetrack has more than 800 stalls. So, and if the training center only builds 600, they're going to have to they should build at least 1,500. And I'm sure that if everything happens the way everybody's talking, they're going to need a lot more stalls than that, because there's going to be probably 3 racetracks in the whole country in 3-4 years, the way things are going. And the 3 of them are going to be right around that area. So
it's not going to be that bad, Larry, but what you have is that return to a simpler life, that you know that there are trainers, and I could name you a dozen of them right now, that they don't like when we enter a track A and we don't get in, but there's track B, there's track C, there's track D, there's track E. There's 200 miles to this track, 100 miles to this track, 300 miles. And if they could, again, simplify their life and get to a place where the racing's just in one state, that would certainly entice a lot of people to come.
And I think the people that are going to show up there, if I was younger and had the money, well, I had the ability to get people to put up the money like I did in the 1980s, I'd buy a big piece of land and build a domed training facility, domed racetrack. Have, the barns outdoors, but enclosed, but have a domed training track, because in Kentucky it's just like training up north. You're going to lose half the days because of weather, and I'm sure that they're going to have the best horses down there racing for money that they never raced for before in their lives. And a dome, I know I'd pay the fee, and you can get the fee because of the purse money. And even if you have to charge them $1,500 a stall a month or $2,000 a month, they're going to pay because of the purse money. And the $2,000, if you build 1,000 stalls with a domed racetrack, and the whole racetrack don't have to be domed, just not the infield, just around the track, so the track stays, so you don't miss a day for whatever reason. So that's what I would do if I was younger. I'd really look into it, but that's it. You want me to keep playing it, Freddie?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
Play.
Hey, Sean. Now the handles everything is up in Kentucky right now. The Kentucky Derby had 340 million viewers watch it this year. That's a record from like 1989. And I was just told that Oak Grove, the handle is up 24%. Do you see the handles increasing in Kentucky now that everything's starting to move and focus there?
Thoroughbred-wise, I think on the biggest days, yes. The average days in Kentucky, yes, as well, because the field sizes have been so good with all the HHR funds, and we have maiden races go for up to $120,000. I mean, everybody in the country wants to race here. What we in the standardbred world, like Oak Grove's success here recently, kudos to them, is out of creativity and good. I think it's good card planning. I don't know if anybody noticed, but they ran like they raced like 4 5/8 races the other day on a day where they had 4-year-old Kentucky Sire Stakes races, and they were fascinating. I mean, you had the track isn't set up perfect for a 5/8 like it is in the Meadowlands necessarily, but you had 2 and 3 wide all the way around. I mean, some really exciting racing, and I'm sure that's part of why their handle's doing better. All the tracks need to continue to be creative with their with their conditions and their race planning, just to put out a competitive product. We have all this money, all this stakes development money or breed development money available, but it's no substitute for the race secretaries. Like, you still have to do that job well to get the people watching.
Now, in Kentucky, we haven't.
I think Keeneland, though, was down a little bit. I think the weather had something to do with it this year. But when you're racing, even with the thoroughbreds, the money in Kentucky, the bonuses for the thoroughbreds, are incredible.
Yeah, an example of a bonus for the thoroughbreds, Michelle.
Sorry?
An example of what is a typical bonus for the thoroughbreds compared to the standardbreds?
Well, for instance, we have we raced just one. We were lucky enough with Wesley Ward to race one of our Chancelot thoroughbreds, a starter, 2-year-old starter. We didn't expect to start so soon. And I think they went into, it was a $90,000 race for 90. Unfortunately, she was New York bred. But the purse, she won, and the purse, I think it was like $35,000 as opposed to 90, because she wasn't Kentucky bred. And so that just shows you like the money that's there. So, usually we have, we're strategic. Chancelot stands right behind Bramble Park in for sales. But it's kind of crazy, the money and the bonus programs that are set in, New York, the same thing, but we're talking about Kentucky. So when you start to look at it, there's a lot of money there, and I don't think they can spend it all.
Now, I don't know if Steve is back, but this is for both Sean and Michelle. Do you think that they've hit the ceiling in Kentucky, or do you see more growth coming? Either one of you.
So the ceiling is there because there is a cap. Like, there's what they're calling a soft cap. It's a little confusing, but they call it a soft cap on the breed development fund. So essentially, once the breed development fund receives a certain amount of money, then the percentage of the cut lessens for any additional monies. So there is a bit of a plateau, and it can't just keep growing exponentially. So, like, if people aren't really in tune to it, the growth that they've seen these last 2-3 years out of Kentucky, you can't expect that every year. But there's definitely room for some growth. I think the biggest piece is that, like, competitively, these slot machines are very attractive here to the public because we don't have anything else. There are no table games. There are no online games. There is sports betting and horse betting, but there's no competitive product yet for those games. Eventually that will come, and that could potentially decrease things. But I think there's a good run, like a foreseeable future, like 10, 15-year run to this, because Kentucky is behind, like a lot of the rest of the country, especially in the Northeast, that has kind of had all of this for a long time and has been through. You can kind of look to, like, other states and see, okay, how long do the slots have before other stuff comes in? And so because the horse industry has so many lobbyists and is so connected politically, I think you'll see protection for the slot machines and the money they produce for the races. So, yeah, like, I think short answer, it's a long, rambling answer, but the short answer is, like, I think there's a good foreseeable future run to this.
Okay.
Yeah, the other thing that is probably the most important is there is no casino companies that own any of this. They're all owned. All the racetracks, like every state, has casinos or something, usually except New Jersey, attached to it. The difference in Kentucky is there is no MGM Grand. There is no Harrah's. It's all the tracks and everything is owned. All the machines and everything are owned by the tracks. So there's one less entity that we have to worry about trying to stop us. Basically, the casino company in Kentucky is Churchill Downs, who owns Oak Grove. So that is a huge help for us, is the fact that we don't have anybody, we don't have to worry about a casino company saying, okay, we're tired of the horses, let's lobby and try to get the legislature to change the rules. So that's probably one of the biggest advantages we have.
Steve, Freddie here. Do you think other states could copy what Kentucky's doing?
Well, I think the Meadowlands has tried or in the process of maybe or whatever is trying to get these machines at the Meadowlands. You know, before we talked about wanting to, when all this was happening, there was a lot of people saying, well, we need to have casinos in Kentucky and we'll put them at the racetracks. But once that started talking or whatever, Joe Costa did an excellent job in making us all realize that we don't want casinos. What we want is these machines so that you didn't have the competition from the table games and everything like that, because a lot of times you don't get the share of that. You more or less just get the share. I think in Pennsylvania we just get the machines, not the table games.
Yeah,
so it worked out.
Steve, let me just interrupt here for 1 second. When we say machines, we're talking about the historical horse racing slots, correct?
Yes, that is correct. That's correct. Bring her out.
Okay, and so the Meadowlands might be looking to do that. Would that pass the state legislation and stuff?
Well, who knows? You know how that goes or whatever. Usually the darkest day is when you finally, Ohio looked like it was dead, and then Basics came in and said, we're going to put the machines at the racetracks or whatever, and then it rejuvenated the New York or Ohio. So, you never say never, but, it's something that needs to be looked at. Obviously their problem is they've got tremendous competition or problem with Atlantic City. Once you get casinos there, really that's what happened in Illinois. That the riverboats got there before the racetracks, and then they were able to keep it away from the racetrack. So we got lucky in New York and Pennsylvania and now in Kentucky and Ohio. Ohio had them, but K6 was good enough to help us. Anyway, I got to run. Let me get this bowl out. But you all keep talking.
Okay.
Keep talking.
Hey, Larry,
Steve was delivering a
take
poll
break
at
here.
this particular time, in case anyone didn't know.
Those are just powerful words that
I'll tell you, if I was in a business, I'd be moving to Kentucky tomorrow.
that's exactly right. I mean, all the indicators are right? I mean, if this was trading before the market starts, all the indicators are up, right? So
And I'd be claiming every Kentucky bred in every race.
And then you got Churchill at Oak Grove. They just had the Derby, 146,000 people on track. Everybody saw the weather wasn't the greatest. They handled $340 million. That's a record. As Freddie said, it's the highest watched Derby since 1989. So that's 36 years. The win pool just in the Derby, or the win place and show, was $122 million. I think the exacta pool was 30. I think the trifecta pool was 35 million. And your guys talked about it on your show Tuesday. That if there's one race you're going to bet, it's going to be the Derby, because the Chalk's got a very big chance of getting beat. You saw he got beat, but it's still the three horses that ran 1, 2, 3 were semi to deep closers. That's what the public wants to see, because your chance of a payoff is escalated if the speed doesn't get away. So on the same front, you've got Oak Grove, and Oak Grove this year is up 24%, and that flies against an industry where wagering is down almost 80 million this year. So I do think, as one of the gentlemen said, Oak Grove is fairly creative. I think Kevin Mack is an excellent race secretary. He puts out an old-time condition sheet, and the old-time stuff works.
Want me to continue?
Yes, sir.
Yes. He was delivering a poll at this particular time, in case anyone didn't know. All right, Steve, good luck. Now, Sean and Michelle, do you think that in the future we could possibly see the Hamiltonian racing at the Red Mile?
Good question. That I don't know.
The reason I asked that question, I'll be real clear on it, is the rumor out there is that the Meadowlands will be closing if they don't get a casino in by 2027. So And so I've heard that from
personally, I would love to see the Hambletonian 1 year at the Red Mile. I think it's a great track. I think there's no better venue. I love it in the fall. I'm not sure that we're going to see that happen. I don't know. Sean, what do you think?
Yeah, I've heard the rumor too, Freddie. I don't know. I think it completely depends on Jeff Grau there and what he wants to do. And none of us know kind of exactly where things are headed with some of the stuff, the news that comes out of the Meadowlands. But the Meadowlands is so important to our sport. By all means, I mean, we need that place to be successful. So let's hope, honestly, that it doesn't have to move anytime soon.
I agree 100%.
In there, 'cause we need that place strong, and we need that ownership group to be doing well. I would love to see the Breeders' Crown at the Red Mile.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. I did hear that rumor, and I was hoping, maybe the Breeders' Crown could shuffle around a little bit, more so than, the Hambletonian is a sure thing. They do a great job with it, and it's a big weekend, and, that's coupled with just such a big stakes weekend in the kindergarten and all of the good races at the Meadowlands Pace before that. So, you got to spread the wealth a little bit also. I don't see Jeff wanting it to leave the Meadowlands anytime soon, for sure.
Now, let's talk about the Breeders' Crown a little bit. Do you think if, let's say we had the Breeders' Crown at the Red Mile, could we draw a crowd of at least 50,000?
No. Short answer is no, unfortunately. I would love to think that we could, but in these modern times, and like Michelle deserves a lot of credit. She partnered with the Red Mile, Crawford Farmstead, last fall to do like a Sunday night series, and they roll out the red carpet for folks, concerts and games, entertainment, all kinds of stuff for the families. And they drew like not really nice crowds for us down here, but just in modern times with harness racing, like we're nowhere close to those level crowds. Unfortunately, it's just the reality.
No, and
the reason
I don't think the Red Mile can handle that amount of people anyway. The infrastructure is just not set up for that. And we tried everything. We had live entertainment in there, and I think that's just something that that type of a crowd would be. I don't see it happening, and it's hard enough to get people to even realize the Red Mile's there and that there's racing, and trying to collab with Keeneland and UK and the student section and stuff like that to try to get groups in. So there's so much going on, and there's so much growth, but I don't see it in time. I don't see it rolling out into the Breeders' Crown event.
Okay. But yeah, because I'm just looking at like what they do for the Kentucky Derby over there at Churchill Downs. Over 150,000 people in the pouring rain. I mean, that is amazing to me. And
well, I think
the Derby's got that one thing going for it.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, Michelle. I didn't mean to talk over you. The Derby being a bucket list item for people has just made it to where like it's such a big tourism event. It's just something where that history and people want to go to at least one in their life. Just amazing the amount of people they draw.
Okay, Michelle, you were going to say?
Just that. I just think the Derby has become, they're infamous. They're drawing stars. They're drawing, it's just a whole different ball game. And I think that, typically harness racing has been like the, ugly step sibling or something like that. But as hard as we work on it, and as much as we try to bring awareness to people around us and introduce harness racing, I'm still not sure that we're ever going to get the same pull or the same crowd draw that they do in the thoroughbreds.
Yeah, I know that. I know that when I lobby in Washington D.C., I was with it was one of the Ohio officers. I don't remember who, but my first question is that I always ask, "Are you familiar with harness racing?" And pretty much everyone says no, no, no. Then I have to explain what harness racing is. But on this one occasion, the person said, "Oh yes, I used to work at the Red Mile," and I thought that was funny as hell. But Bob, now you've been pretty quiet. Did you have anything to add?
No, I've just been listening. I think it's wonderful what's what the program has developed into. So, no, I have nothing to add.
I think this year, everything is a little bit of growing pains. I think you have Emily Gaskin now that, transferred over from Indiana, and she's been doing a great job and working with the ownership and Joe and bringing new things. And like I said, the entertainment, we've tried to make Sunday nights for the stakes night just hey, you're not racing in Keeneland, and then when you are, there's nothing on Sunday evening, so come on over. So Gabe did a great job last year. Sad to see him go. But I think Kentucky is going to catch on a little bit. I think with Bramble, you're going to get more of the trainers in there. I mean, if you could have horses and overnights, that's just going to help overall draw more people in. So I do think it's on the up and coming. I'm not sure that we're going to ever be Keeneland or Churchill Downs. So we'll see.
Okay. With that, I'm going to close the show out. Michelle, Sean, and Steve, who's gone now, I want to thank you guys so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Freddie.
Thanks for having us.
That's our pleasure. That's a wrap for this week's broadcast. Thanks for listening, and please don't forget to join us again next week.
That was a good show, Freddie. That was very informative. That was good.
When you have good guests, they make you look good.
And good information too. A lot of it was very, very good. Like I said, I wish I was 40 years old, because I'd tomorrow morning, in spite of all the problems they're having with the flights getting out of Newark, I'd be at Newark Airport looking to buy a property down there.
Let me tell you that on the thoroughbred side, Churchill, of course, they've got the Derby and they've got all this other stuff, and they're going great guns. Churchill's maiden races, their maiden races are going for $120,000. When they go to Kentucky Downs in September, the projected maiden race is going for $170,000. They're going to have, I believe, 10 races in that small meet that are over $1 million, and they're going to have a new $3.5 million race, the Nashville Derby. And obviously with all these facts and figures that we're throwing around, everybody wants horses. And as we've discussed on this show and on Freddie's show, there is a lot of money out there. There's a lot of money out there, and I do think that people can get interested in horse racing right now. Now, the Red Miles is a spectacular venue. Michelle was right that you can only get it's an older facility, and you could never get the crowd you get at the Thoroughbreds. But it is a historical, I would call it a landmark. It's one of the great venues in harness racing, and I think certainly between a lead-in from Oak Grove to the Red Mile, and then to the late closers that'll happen at the newer track in Cumberland, you've got a 7.5 month circuit at some point where you could create a lot of interest. The old days at the Meadowlands, as you recall, racing started the day after Christmas, the same day that Santa Anita would open. Everybody had to go to the track, and the last day was the Hambletonian. It was about a 7.5 month circuit. So can that magic happen? I think it can.
Yeah, absolutely.
There was something special in the old days about December 26th, because that was opening day at the Meadowlands and opening day at Santa Anita. For a horse player's standpoint, one of the most exciting days there was. So you need that downtime to create the enthusiasm.
Right, and if you go back to the old New York circuit, Roosevelt and Yonkers, they had 5 meets, per year. Roosevelt would have 2, Yonkers would have 3, and then the next year would be vice versa. But they had the opening night and the closing night, and the opening night and closing nights were always big draws for both tracks.
And the neat part, Freddie, and Larry, you'll agree, horses for courses, right? That there were horses that loved Yonkers that maybe didn't like Meadowlands that much. And even when they opened Garden State, There were horses that were really good at Meadowlands that weren't quite as good at Garden State. You're going to have that also where maybe next year the Oak Grove Shippers, some of those do very well at the Red Bow, some of them don't. And getting back to what I'd like to see, and I've said this for 30 years to deaf ears in harness racing, your maiden races have to go for more. If you're going to get people to buy yearlings, yes, there are going to be people that win the Meadowlands Pace, the North America Cup, the Breeders' Crown, but most of those people are somewhat modest means, and they're just trying to get a horse through non-winners of 2, non-winners of 3, so they can go back to the yearling sale and buy another horse. Well, I know last year, Oak Grove, in the last month, they were going with non-winners of 1. I think they were going for $25,000. Now, if you could start doing that on a regular basis, where those people that spend $30,000, $40,000 on a yearling know that if they can get their horse through non-winners of 2, that to get enough money to go back to the yearling sales, I think you would secure the middle of that sale. And for those people that run those yearling sales and those breeders, I think that's a key component.
Yeah, one of the other things that I'm going to point out is, like in Kentucky, they have their sire stake program covers 4-year-olds also. It's not just 2 and 3-year-olds; it's 4-year-olds, and the 4-year-olds were the ones that were racing last week, and they were going for $50,000, $100,000 purses.
Well, this Sunday, Oak Grove is going to have a special Sunday card for Mother's Day, and they're going to have 4 $100,000 races for 4-year-olds, and they're also going to have a pair of $33,000 opens, and they're going to be raising purses as the meet goes on. So, again, this Sunday will be a special card and 4 $100,000 races for 4-year-olds, and we're trying to get these 4-year-olds to stay on the track. So these are very, very good things to keep these horses racing.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Larry, did you get any questions in?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's answer some questions, Larry.
Okay.
Roll the
Let's
dice.
here's one for you, Michael. It says Michael spoken before about Belfair's model for fixed odds. It sounded to me like they had separate markets on each horse, so that I could take the field, raises 6-1 shot, land 1-6. Is this correct?
Yes, Pat, that's correct. Betfair's model was a betting exchange. So some people wanted to bet the horse and some people wanted to lay the horse. And depending what the offers were, you could choose what side you wanted. Now, obviously, as you continue this, the prices would vary based on the offers by the people that were offering the bets. And it was a great model because the model on an exchange, the people that are running the exchange can't lose. All they did was collect between 2 and 5% of the winnings of whoever was the winning selection. So, yes, in your example, you could take the field versus 6-1 or lay the 1-6 if those were the prices that were being offered. So that's correct.
And then he also says, why did Betfair stop doing this?
In 2006, there was a famous poker was booming. And the reason poker was booming was there was a brilliant guy that created the camera that let you see what the hole cards were. And that brought poker to television. The original World Series of Poker drew, I think, 29 entries. I believe in 2004, they were up to 12,000. And poker was rampant. So what they did in 2006 was kind of I don't know, there's no good word for it, but they attached a banning of internet poker to a Homeland Security bill, and that's the bill that stopped Betfair from doing business in the United States.
Okay, here's another one. And I think it's probably because of the weather. The Kentucky Derby, David says the Kentucky Derby crowd of 147,406 was down 6% from last year's 156,710. The record of 170,513 was established in 2015. That's probably because of the weather, right? It's amazing that they even got 147,000 in the pouring rain, and everybody knew it was going to rain for days in advance, and they just probably changed their plans, I would imagine.
Yeah, weather is certainly a factor, and you have to remember there's a lot of people, 80,000 people in the infield. I don't know what kind of a great experience that is in the rain. And you have to remember that card takes 10 hours to finish. They start at 10:30 and the card goes all night. So, yes, it would be no surprise to me that attendance would be down. Thank you, David, for the question.
Okay, Gregory Peck, our friend Gregory Peck says Freddy's show was a great idea to provoke an interesting discussion. Michael is very facts-driven. It's all good, Larry. I agree with you, Gregory. That was I said it right after I shut it off, that it was a great show. And I only wish I was younger. I don't after listening to that, what they were saying, and the most impressive thing was what he said was that a couple of things I got from that. Number one, I don't think Meadowlands is going to get gambling because the lobbying for Atlantic City is so strong, and I think they have some kind of agreement or something like that where casinos is never going to go up north in North Jersey. So that's probably a dead issue. The other thing was that I forgot what I was going to say.
Let's take some more questions, Larry.
I just remembered. The other thing that one of your guests, Freddie, said on the show was that the racetrack owns all the slot machines, no casinos, and I'm certainly. And he said you have a 15, 20-year run.
I think he said 10 to 15, but it could be more.
It could be never. It could be never if this thing is successful. Like I think, and like everybody's thinking, I would really get an investor, and I would build a domed racetrack with 1,500 stalls, because you got to remember, there was a time that the Meadowlands, I think the Meadowlands has 1,000 stalls, maybe a little bit more, but for sure 1,000.
They were in that area. You know, they had 5 bar. You know, the barns were set up in sections of five separate sections with 33. I think it's like 24 or 26 stalls in each one.
They had like 1,000 stalls at the Meadowlands. Then Show Place had another 500-600. Gateway had another 500-600. There were 2 or 3 other farms that had another 500 or 600, and sometimes they had problem filling the boxes. The box at the track, and so you're talking about 3,000 horses within 100-mile from the Meadowlands, and sometimes they still had problem filling the boxes. So if they're building a training facility and they're only going to have 600 stalls, the right thing to do would be a domed racetrack with 1,500 stalls. Charge them $2,000, $2,500 a month for stall rent for $2,000, and if you have 1,500 stalls, they'll all be full because of the purse money and everything that your guest said on that show. They're paying, I think, $500, $600, $700 for a stall a month now, plus they're paying a couple of hundred to ship 4 times a month. So that's another, tack that on, and it's over. You know, it don't even, it's a no-brainer. Just charge $2,000-$3,000 a month for a stall at a training facility that's right near the racetrack you're going to race at, and it's domed, and you're not going to miss any days, because who wants to miss 2 or 3 days when you're racing for 60, 70, 80, 120,000, especially if you're Kentucky bred, and then you get another half of that on the win end. So that's what I would do. I would Eric Cherry should think about that. He's entrepreneurial like that, and I think he sold his farm years back in Florida, and that's what he should do. So That's my 2 cents.
I think he's pretty involved in the Kentucky racing. He has too many horses not to be.
Yeah, I mentioned it before. I think last time I spoke to him, and I could be wrong, I think he said he sold $800,000 worth of 2-year-olds or yearlings or something that 1 year, and that was a few years back. And I think I got the number right, but he's pretty involved. He's pretty involved, and he loves the game, and he's good for the game, and he's a very, very sharp guy, very, very smart. I spent a lot of time with him in his office with Warren DeSantis, and just sat back and saying, I wish I went to school. I wish I had that brain. Very, very sharp guy. Made a lot of money, and not only in the horse business, but in other ventures too. The first 800 number, the Dion Warwick hotline, and then the first one with the showing all the races, and the very, very smart guy. I can't wait to get to Florida to see him.
He made $8 million allowing them to blow up his house up in Florida for the movie Bad Boys.
Yeah, do you know that? And Warren told me this. Eric did tell me this. Warren, and he says, you believe Eric? He has a house. He don't know what to do with it. He don't like it. He don't want to live there no more and everything. And he can't sell it or something. And then the movie company come and offered him $5 million if they could blow it.
$8 million.
And he unbelievable. But he's a lucky guy, and now I think he's very lucky with Lisa, this girl, his new wife. Boy, she not only is she beautiful, but he told me that she cooks really well. He invited me to dinner when I get out there. I can't wait to get out there. There's a few things I want to talk to him about anyway.
She sets a really, really nice table and makes these really, really fantastic dishes and serves like really, really top shelf wine. And they have like these Saturday night at the races when the Meadowlands is running. So they run the races over there and have like a little get together and party there every Saturday night.
I wanted to say one thing, Larry and Freddie, that on this show we've been talking about takeout, how crucial it is that we get this takeout to a manageable number so that more people can win, or at least have a better chance of lasting. As we said, harness racing this year in the first 4 months is down almost $80 million in wagering. Yet last week, even though the Meadowlands, they were down significantly from the year before, those pick 4 pools at 15% were very, very good. And Woodbine, who's down an astronomical amount versus last year, I think Monday night their pick 5 pool was over 150,000. So what does that tell you? I mean, to me, it tells you that if you price your product correctly, you can overcome some of the obstacles that we're having. So one of the biggest things we need to do as an industry is address the takeout. It has to be lowered to give people a realistic chance of winning.
Okay, let's go to some of these questions here. I can't read them fast enough. Pat says, thanks, Michael. I was dealing Texan Hold'em in 2006 in Indiana in 06. Poker's explosion in popularity at that time was pretty amazing. Okay, let's see what
I want to come back to that. And Larry, I'm going to bring you in because you're going to love this.
Go ahead.
So anyway, 2000, as I said, I think in 2004, they were up to 12,000 entries, up from 29 in the World Series of Poker, which brought me back to somebody that I think you knew, Larry, which was Stewie Unger. Now, that guy, when he first came, and you talked about it on his show, probably one of the greatest gin rummy players of all time, and one of the certainly one of the greatest poker players of all time. I think he was a 3-time winner of the World Series of Poker. But when Stewie was good, I mean, there wasn't a lot of interest. I mean, the Wide World of Sports would show the World Series of Poker, and nobody knew the cards. When they came out with the whole card cam and everybody could see the cards, not only was it more interesting, but now everybody could see how Daniel Negreanu played, how Johnny Chan played, how all these top players played. It created such a whirlwind of interest. And that's why I come back to the tournaments. If we could have tournaments in even internet tournaments, and I think in the end, for some of the average people to see how some of the top people in this sport play, I mean, that's priceless. But I mean, talk about Stewie a little, Larry, because I think you knew him a little bit.
So yeah, I did. I knew him. I knew him very well. He was a friend of mine, a partner in some horses. Brought him up from. He was from Harlem, Richie, my partner, and he brought him up there. And I knew him well. I hooked him up with all the Concord and the Raleigh and all the hotels up there for gin games, because on weekends all the husbands would come up and the card room was packed, and everybody in the world thinks that they're the best gin player in the world. And anyway, he cleaned up. He made a lot of money. He couldn't bet on any of the races at the Meadowlands because there was no handle when he came up. And
Larry, wasn't he like 16 years old?
Oh yeah, he was very, very young. He was amazing. He would know after 3 cards what you had in your hand, and it got to the point where he would play with his hand open. He'd play you with his hand open, and they came from all over the country to play him. After he ran out of people to play him up Monticello after the summer, he went to Florida for a while, and the same thing there. And then after a while, he had no choice but to go to Vegas. But the reason he left, the reason he was not controlled, but he was backed by a couple of wise guys from Philly Brush and a couple of guys from Harlem. But they had to get him out of there, because even though he was involved with a couple of them guys were with him. He'd never lose playing gin, but he'd never win betting sports. He'd win 100,000 a week betting playing gin and lose 200,000 betting sports. And it got to the point where he owed everybody in New York money, and they had to get him out of there or pay.
They played horses also.
He loved to play horses, but I set him up. But I says, you can't bet at Monticello, because during them years I was doing my own thing, and I told him you can't interfere. I says, plus you're not going to be happy with a $3,000 win ticket. He wants to bet $3,000. And I told him, and he understood, and he stayed away. He never come in my lane. And I gave him the opportunity with all the hotels. He win a lot of money, but then again, he left there almost broke, because he couldn't stop betting. He just was a sick, degenerate gambler that almost got him killed many, many years later in Vegas. And he saved my life one time, and I saved his life one time. And thank God, at the time, I was able to help him with a couple of 100,000. When and I think I told the story when they were going to kill him out in Vegas, because he owed Tony Spilotro bullshit money, but it was still 100,000. But when he sent for him, he showed up with a gun, because I asked Tony, because they beat him up really bad, and when I flew out there to help him, to give him the money, I said, well, how could you? The guy weighed 80 pounds. He says he showed up with a gun. And that was his reason. But anyway, I paid the debt, but it didn't end for him, and he wound up dying broke in one of them Motel 6s or something. It was sad. Brilliant guy, the best, not without a doubt, the best gin player in the world, because everybody from around the world came to play him, and they couldn't beat him. And what was good about him, too, not only was he a genius that way, whether it be counting cards or whatever, he had an unbelievable memory. He could stay up for 2 days and 2 nights and just weigh you down. So if he had a player, and he had many that would play round the clock. He was just as fresh after the second day as he was when they first started, and that's what helped him a lot. But it was his gambling and sports. I mean, here's the guy that won that. You were right. He won 3 Hold'em tournaments, millions and millions of dollars, and was always broke.
He had no respect for money.
No.
Let me come full circle on this to where our guest had asked the question in 2006 when they did that internet bill. Right before that, again, they had 12,000 entries for the World Series of Poker. Well, the famous one, the one that broke everything, was in 2003, and that's when Chris Moneymaker won the World Series of Poker. But what made it famous is they had a lot of tournaments, what they called satellite tournaments, where you could win an entry into the World Series of Poker instead of paying $10,000. Well, Chris Moneymaker won one for $40, and he's the one that won it. And I don't remember what first place was that year, but I thought it was 7, 8, 10 million, because the next year I thought it was 12 million. But if we could create something like that, and listen, we're never going to have 12 million for first, but if we could create a tournament that was 500,000 for first, and something similar, the Thoroughbreds have 1 million. Even start at 200,000, where people could win a spot for $40 and get into a tournament like this. This is how you create the massive interest to become a gambling, staple. And of course, with the takeout has to get addressed here. I mean, everything is telling you that people are price sensitive here. Let's get in the game.
Let me run down a couple of these things real quick because I have trouble reading them. So I'm just going to pop them on.
Pop them up, sir.
And if they're stupid, we'll get rid of them. If they're
no.
Okay, here's the first list. David, you guys are the best. I love all the opinions. Doesn't matter if I agree or not.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Dome Racetrack, David, again, the Dome Racetrack is a great idea, Larry. Yeah, it makes sense to me because Kentucky, they have a lot of bad days. And if you don't get a real good track guy, you're going to miss a lot of days. In standardbred racing, they race every 7 days. And you can't afford to miss 3-4 days. And,
but Larry, they might have the revenue to do it, to have it make sense to somebody.
Well, I'm talking about, if the racetrack, that would be great. That would be fine because you probably, and I don't know because I didn't do the numbers, but if you can create a dome racetrack, and I know that real grass don't grow on the racetrack, but we are not going to have any harness turf races, so it makes no difference. But you'd never miss a day. You'd never and if the handle is what it has, what they say, it makes a lot of sense. But I was talking mainly about the training facilities. That a dome racetrack, you can get a lot of money for because now the horses that are going to race there, their earnings every year are going to be a couple of $100,000 a year, and if it costs you $60,000-$70,000 to keep a horse, you can claim a horse or buy a horse, have them paid for the expenses and the price of the horse, and still have $50,000-$60,000 left over. So you have no problem paying $2,000, $2,500 for stall rent or $3,000 a month for stall rent, because you're eliminating $1,000, $1,500 a week from just shipping back and forth. Plus the stall rent up here, which when I was in the business, it was $500-$600 a month, and that was 20 years ago. I imagine it's a lot more than that now. So you could build a dome facility with 1,500 stalls, and like I said, it don't have to be a complete dome. Just cover enough of the racetrack. But you got to have the racetrack, because if you're going to have 15, you got to have the racetrack at least 60 feet wide. So just make sure that's covered enough where and maybe you could even have blankets or shades that pull down. So if the wind really is bad or something. But they'll figure it out. They could figure it out. I think the place would be packed, especially with the purse money and everything that I heard on Freddy's show, that it's going to be, you're going to have at least a minimum of a 10, 15-year run. that's the lifespan of a horse. So if you get in right in the beginning before that horse is all done, you can have, I think it's a good deal. Anyway, let's see. Eric says, for Michael, when, if ever, will National Sports Show, like, pardon the interruption, give some coverage to harness racing?
We need $1 million races. We need to pay more attention to the classic division. The way you get interest is, we've talked about on this show, and I think we've created lots of dialogue for one of these big premier 3-year-old races to have a road to the X, road to the Hamiltonian, road to the North America Cup, road to the Meadowlands Pace. So you start doing that, create interest. All of a sudden now, all these other races that are prelude create more interest also. But you need that $1 million race. So I think that's those are the parameters. And obviously Kentucky has got the hard part figured out, the revenue. So can we do something in the near future that will bring this sport to a place where David is talking about? I think that's possible.
Okay, David also says he don't see the connection between poker and harness racing.
I'm guessing David is not a gambler, because that's a real easy connection. Everything's a mathematical game if you're a gambler. In other words, you got 10 horses and all the horses are the same. Before takeout, it's 9-1. If the ace of spades is you're trying to pick the ace of spades out of a poker deck, it's 51-1. And the greatest poker players know all the percentages of all the situations, and so do all the good horse players. So yes, from a gambling standpoint, yes.
He said, St. David also says poker ratings are way down, also big decline.
Well, you have to understand, television ratings are way down because a lot of younger people don't watch TV. They watch podcasts, they watch the internet. So yes, television ratings will be down. That's natural.
Lou says thoroughbred racing has gotten so bad in Canada, Woodbine let horses race at Fort Erie racetrack. If a horse races at Fort Erie, they're not allowed to race at Woodbine. I don't know anything about that.
I think what Lou's talking about, and I apologize if I'm wrong, but there are some tracks that think they're very provincial, that they don't want you racing at any other tracks. And I don't think that solves anything. So I think at least the horse owners bought the horse. Let them race the horse where they decide to race the horse, and these racetracks should get along better than they do.
Okay, Eric to David. So he's agreeing with him. Me too. No connection. I took buddies to the track. Their horse was disqualified. They went back to poker room and never returned.
Well, I'm sure that's happened.
Yeah. Okay, Larry Cox, Yonkers tomorrow night, big purses, 500,000.
I'm gonna tell you what, and we talked about this 2 months ago. In my opinion, two of the best races every year are the Matchmaker Final and the Borgata Final. But the problem is you have 5 legs, and during those legs, you don't see a lot of great racing along the way. But the racing historically in these 2 finals is pretty magnificent, because there's a lot of movement. They go for a lot of money. And I think these races tomorrow are real interesting, because in both of the finals, I thought the horses that come out of the best races drew outside. I think in the one race, they were 6, 7, 8. And I think the other races, they were 5, 6, 8. But historically, these are 2 of the best races of the year.
Okay, Pat says, how about putting cameras on the drivers, jockeys' heads for different points of views like they do in Formula One? The Netflix series of F1 drivers have led to 2 races in the U.S., both drawing 100,000 fans. Well, I have no opinion about that. I don't.
We're way behind the curve here. I mean, the Formula One is one of the world's greatest sports. They draw people in every country they go. So, of course, we're going to be well behind. The idea is wonderful, but we are well behind Formula One.
Okay,
But
David
there
says,
are a few races out there where you do see drivers with cameras on their helmets. I've seen a few of them, not many, but I have seen a few.
Yes,
Hervé
there
was
was one on Bulldog Hanover, the last race where he won in Canada. I
Right.
think there was one on Flightline in the 2022 Breeders' Cup. Yes, I've seen it.
Hervé was good at that. He would narrate the race as he was driving it, and he'd tell you who's coming
Yeah.
up, what you should do, and
He like he yelled to the guy, "Hey, I can't let you go. You're 60-1."
okay, let's see. Where was I? David, despite having won an estimated $30 million during his poker career, Stu Unger died with no assets to his name. That's exactly true. I think he had $80 in his pocket when they
That's
found
true.
him dead. What a shame. He was really a good kid, too. He really was a good kid. But the cocaine, he was a cocaine freak. He just couldn't stop. And the girls took a lot of his money. Always had a beautiful girl on his arm and mounds and mounds of cocaine. Shame. What a shame. All right, Bill. I saw pictures from Pocono Downs years ago. You couldn't even move outside watching races. What happened?
Freddie, it's a beautiful place, isn't it?
Yep, that it is. And I remember going up to the Poconos years ago, back in the, I'm going to say 70s, pretty much after they had, I guess they opened in the 70s. But they had a decent crowd there, and they were racing for what, like $1,000 purses at that time.
Okay, Michael said, great idea, Pat. And Pat answered him back. Thanks, buddy. Okay, let's see what David has to say. Monticello did the same thing. If you stabled on track, they didn't let you ship out to race at other tracks. That was mainly because they had trouble fixing the races. You got to remember, Monticello, I think, only had 800 or 900 stalls. And if you wanted to ship in, and there was only one training center up there, that was the Ponderosa, and they had about maybe 40 stalls in quicksand. So it was if you wanted to ship, if you wanted to race, it was like an isolated place. So they didn't want you, because once you shipped out, you weren't going to get ship-ins to take your place, and they couldn't fill carts. So if you were up there, you had to stay there.
Well, let me say this: the race secretary of Monticello, there's days when they have 7 races, so they definitely have a horse population problem at Monticello.
Oh yeah, today, yeah, I'm talking about
Sure.
70s.
Sure.
Yeah, but Larry, if you remember how race secretaries used to be, they ruled the racetracks with an iron fist. They were like gods, and when you tried to get horses in and get stalls and stuff, you had to fight to get stalls, even when you had a decent stable.
Yeah, you don't have to tell me. Okay, let's see. Bill, I worked at the casino in Pocono for years. Years ago, used to own horses with Sean Penn when the purses were smaller. Yeah, well, Sean for Sean
Beer. I mean, that family's been there for 40 years, right?
So, he was Lonnie Beer's son. He was that's another guy. That's another guy. If he would have just behaved, he could have been in the Hall of Fame. Him, Lou Williams, I put them all in the same category. All of them tall, lanky guy. You know them. Just a great guy. Could really get a horse going. Very, very smart on the racetrack, and but he was. If it wasn't for him, he saved. Well, we worked together a lot at them smaller racetracks. He was the one that when all the lights went out at Green Mountain, he had the next race fixed, and I was in the race, and all the lights went out, and they were going to cancel the races, and he called up and he says, "Listen," he says, because they delayed the races trying to fix it, and he says, "Look, why don't we just the front side by the grandstand." that's lit up already from the lights from the grandstand. Just leave them on during the race. Them lights stayed on. It was only the lights around the track.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, and the parking was on the other side of the track where the paddock was. He says, we'll turn all the headlights on the cars, and the track will be lit up. And they agreed to that, and that's how we finished the races. And we raced that race. He won a lot of money, and well, we did. And but them are stories that you tell, nobody's going to believe it, but it's true. These are true stories, but it's hard to tell because who's going to believe a story like that? But trust me, it's true. And there were other guys up there that are probably listening that were up there at the same time. Not many still alive, but they're there. Okay, let's see what Craig has to say. Why don't the drivers have fixed cameras on their helmets so the betting public can see what actually goes on during a race? Yeah, well, not only can they see, but they can hear, because believe it or not, there's a lot of conversations sometimes going on out there. But that's that
some
might
colorful language.
That might be, the cameras, the powerful language. That might be a good idea. I don't know. I know that Hervé has one on YouTube. They have a race. Hervé put one on his helmet, and he had a microphone, and he narrated the race while he was in it. He says, okay, I'm going to try to get away second. And he says, I'm third. I don't want to be third, but I'm third. And then he narrates the whole race. And here comes the 5. And then he narrated the whole race and told you about all the horses around him. It was very entertaining, very good. Hervé. Racetracks need cheap food and drinks so people will go.
Couldn't agree more. 100%.
Yep.
Okay, Steve, we live in a different world today. Sports, gambling, slot machines, and the lottery. We need to get younger people interested in racing. Don't see that happening.
Disagree.
Okay, Eric, to Michael, I have to correct you on something you said last week. Magic and Bird did not save the NBA. Dr. J did, but I love your racing knowledge.
I'm good with that. The world's greatest dunk over Michael Cooper, but Dr. J revolutionized the game, no doubt.
Okay, we reached the bottom, but I only did the last. I'm not going to go all the way up to the top and start because we've been on for an hour and a half, and I know that Michael don't want to go any more than an hour. And I got reprimanded, and so it's been an hour and a half. I think it was a very informative show. It was good. I learned a lot about Kentucky, and like I said, if I was younger and racing any place else, and I had the wherewithal, I'd move to Kentucky. That just seems the place, because everything else, it just don't look good. And even if it did look good, how are you, and not only would I get involved in harness racing, but I'd probably buy 1 or 2 thoroughbreds, Kentucky bred thoroughbreds, and train and keep and stable them and then just ship them. So, but anyway, that's my idea. Michael, do you want to, anything else to say? Because I don't want to go anything more than an hour and a half, because I don't want you yelling at me.
I'm never going to yell at you, Larry, but I think we educated some people.
Yeah.
I think the Kentucky story is not hype. It's all real. They've got the revenue to do what a lot of places can't do. And I think it's certainly likely that they're going to be the center of the solar system very soon.
Here's an interesting one. Lou says, too bad the races are so fast you can't bet during the race like other sports on betting sites. That didn't you talk about something like that? Or maybe I did, where maybe you could make bets who's going to be in front at the quarter pole. Is that you? What this guy means?
That was with the Down Under people a few weeks ago. They were talking about how they're betting in Australia, and that you can change bets. You can make bets while the race is going on.
Larry, let's figure out what we're doing right now with what we've got before we try and go into another part of the universe here. We need to run the business we're running better than we're running it and more efficiently. And I think talk about live betting right now is certainly off limits.
Okay. Very good. You're right. So that's it. It was a good show. And we'll talk during the week. And I'm sure I'll see you guys next Thursday.
Yep. Keep those
All
questions coming in.
Keep those questions coming in. Okay, Michael, thank you. And Freddie, thank you. I'm gonna end this show with my favorite song. It's getting late. So see you around, guys. Thanks,
Thank
Mike.
you. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Dump those grudges, ditch those judges. They're just weighing you down. Drop the haters, procrastinators, 'cause one man's smile is just another one's frown. When it's time for the end, ain't no warning, my friend. One day you're here, next stop the pearly gates. So listen close to what I'm saying. Lighten up, it's getting late. Dump collections, self-reflections, they're just covered in dust. Why obsess, worry or stress? Just ask yourself, what's the fuss? When your doctor calls you on a Sunday afternoon, gonna be a blue Monday, you'll be howling at the moon. You know you never can cheat fate. Lighten up, it's getting late. Forget bling and glitter, text and Twitter. Don't need it to make my case. Say it old school, face to face. Dump the users, soul abusers, turn and walk away. Give yourself a kick in the ass, then raise your glass. Let's toast to the past and make the most of today. Keep the faith, rise above, do the things that you love. Find a reason every day to celebrate. So listen close to what I'm saying. Lighten up, it's getting late. Live it well, have a blast. Live it full, life goes fast. Carrying around too much dead weight. All the simple things are all that matter. Lighten up, it's getting late. Oh, what the hell? IGL. Oh, lighten up, it's getting late.
Now, before I go, the first half of all the comments were people calling up, congratulating me and on all the test results that I got that came back good. And I didn't want to go through all of them, but I thank you all for all your well wishes through all these months. And it was very nice. And all the prayers that you people were sending, I guess it worked between the prayers and the ivermectin or whatever. But I thank you all, and that's it. I don't know what else to say, but thank you and good night.